Hey guys, Charlie Murphy here. Thank you for choosing my stream. We're playing another session of 1-2 No Limit 6 Max games on Ignition, so we'll jump right in. Upper left-hand table, got a 3x open from middle position. 5-3 suited right on the cusp of hands I would defend or fold. I'm going to go ahead and fold it, but it's very close. Lower left-hand table, we'll raise first in from the button, a mid-40s% range, including King-9 offsuit. Probably go down to as low as King-8 offsuit to raise first in and fold King-7 and below. Can raise all the suited combos of kings. And against the 3-bet, especially an appropriately sized 4.5-ish X 3-bet, we'll just go ahead and quickly fold the King-9. Upper left-hand table, we'll raise from the button with Queen-10. And against that 3-bet from the small blind, a hand like this should be folded. That's a pretty loose formation, so we will be continuing pretty wide, but more with pairs, suited connectors, not offsuit Broadway cards. Lower right-hand table, a min-raise from a recreational player on the button. We can go ahead and call that with pretty much all of our suited combos, including Queen-4 suited. Some would be 3-bet, but we'll call some of them as well. He checks back the flop, so we're going to start leading on the Jack-Jack-8 monotone or two-tone flop with the king putting a double backdoor flush draw out there on the turn. I've got no showdown vibe. I'm going to continue bluffing, try to move him off. Well, I'm not going to move him off a pair of kings, of course, but can move him off ace-high, various other draws. Some pairs, like 8x, pocket pairs, might be folding as well. My queen-high just checks down so infrequently good. But it actually picks up the pot by bluffing a decent bit of the time, so I think bluffing is a much better option between checking and giving up in that spot. Upper left-hand table, we're effectively in the cutoff. We'll raise first in with a mid to upper 20% range, something like 27, 28%, including ace-jack suited, of course. Upper right-hand table, we'll raise the cutoff with pocket fours. Lower left-hand table, we are going to shuffle that table out pretty soon, but we're going to raise our button first in with 10-7 suited in the meantime. Lower right-hand table, recreational player who just doubled through in a nasty set over set situation opens to 3x. We're going to go ahead and raise him pretty aggressively on the button, of course including the pocket aces. Probably got about a 9.5% range here, something along those lines. 9s plus ace-jack offsuit plus king-queen offsuit. Most suited broadways, ace-5, ace-4 suited. A range something like that. Get Button versus small blind. This is a pretty loose formation, so we're going to defend pretty loose. We are going to defend a hand as weak as 10-7 suited, even against a larger 4-bet there, just because the player should be 3-betting so aggressively, and the player pool in general is in this particular formation, so we can go ahead and defend with our 10-7 suited. Lower right-hand table, we raise the cutoff first in with Jack-10 offsuit. The big blind calls, then checks to us on 9-8-4 two-tone. We'll go ahead and put in a small range bet. Upper left-hand table, we will open the cutoff with King-Jack suited. Lower left-hand table, we don't really have too much going for our hand except for some weak backdoors, so I'm going to go ahead and fold that one. Lower right-hand table, we have the Queen of Spades that completes our straight but also closes the flush. I am going to be value betting this, but I'm not going to be over betting on these flush closing boards. Upper left-hand table, our cutoff raise first in, got 3-bet in position to about 3x size. We can go ahead and defend with our King-Queen suited here against the player pool. King-Queen, Ace-Queen suited, maybe a few more suited broadways, but not too many. Some mid-pairs and maybe some low-suited connectors if you really want to have some board coverage. He goes ahead and bets small. I've got top pair. I'm not going to wipe thinking. I'm just going to go ahead and start raising and getting money in with it here. He could have ace-king. He could have pocket ace. He could have, top set kings, I guess, if he has the last two. But it's going to be pretty hard for him to really have this hand beat. Against the check raise on the flush closing turn, I'm going to go ahead and actually lay this down. If I had some spade blockers, I'd be more inclined to continue. Should probably use a half pot betting convention to get us to the river. He quickly flats me again. I think I just want to move this all in. If he has ace-king, ace is a full house, so be it. Our hand is too strong to go out thinking it in the 3-bet pots. The fact that he doesn't snap call me is a good sign. Lower right-hand table, we raise middle position first in. The recreational player calls from the big blind and leads into us on King-3 deuce. We've got top pair second kicker, so we'll be continuing. Just not that worried that he has us beat. Turn is the king of hearts, giving us trip second kicker and putting a double flush draw out there. I'm going to start betting now that he checks to me. Given that I'm flattening my entire range that continues when he donks into me, I can still have ace-king, quads, the lower full houses. I'm going to be using overbets or checks in this spot, as I'm really not value betting anything worse than a good trip kings. I'll go ahead and put in my overbet with my trip second kicker. Upper right-hand table, the cutoff raises 3x. We're on the big blind. We're going to go ahead and 3-bet about a 10% range, including all of our suited broadways like Queen-10 suited. We get called. We get a Queen Jack 6 two-tone flop. We'll go ahead and range bet small. We do have top pair. And we take it down. I've got queens and jacks, queen jack, aces, kings, ace queen, king queen. And also some queen 10, queen 9 type combos as well. Plus all sorts of various straight draws. I've got king 10, 9, 10. Upper right-hand table, we've got a 2.5x open from the button. We're going to go ahead and 3-bet him pretty aggressively, about a 14% range. Say pocket pairs, actually probably more like a 15% range in this spot. Say pocket pairs 5 or better, suited broadways, suited aces, suited 9x, 9-8 suited, and then offsuit combos of ace-jack plus king-queen. We get cold 4-bet. Don't know too much about this guy. Certainly not enough to have any real read on his, you know, 4-betting, cold 4-betting tendencies, given he's only played a couple orbits. He hasn't been particularly aggressive thus far. That said, I've got such a wide range here, I should probably be calling probably at least jacks, 10s, and 9s in some suited broadways. I'm going to go ahead and call this and evaluate on the flop. And I'll check range to him. I would have some ace-queen, ace-jack suited type hands, and aces for a trap as well. However, I am just going to go ahead and fold 10s, especially without the spade. On a board like this, I guess I would probably check call and trap with my aces, my set of aces. I'd probably check call my ace-queen, ace-jack. So I guess I would check call any of my Broadway flush draws as well. Hands like king-queen or king-jack, queen-jack spades. I think I can just go ahead and fold the pairs for the most part, especially the pairs that don't have a spade. Lower left-hand table, blind on blind. We got a 3x open into us. Going to go ahead and defend most of our suited combos. We can go ahead and put this in the call range. The little bit better suited connectors I'll often 3-bet, like 5-4, 6-5 suited. 5-3, I think we can just go ahead and call. Lower left-hand table, he checks to us on the 9-9-4 rainbow flop. We'll go ahead and put a small stab at that. We do have 3 cards to the straight and 3 cards to the flush for some backdoor equity if he comes along. Upper right-hand table, we raise the button first in. The big blind calls and leads into us about 75% on 7-6 deuce. We've got overcards. We do have 1 diamond. However, for the larger sizing, I don't know that this guy is fishy necessarily. It's a board where regs could conceivably have some donks legitimately. I think I don't need to go ahead and float here. I think I can just go ahead and fold my king high. We are going to shuffle out that upper right-hand table as well. It seems pretty reg-heavy and pretty aggressive. And there's going to be softer games available in Ignition and these stakes in most cases, most of the time. Upper right-hand table, we get a 2.5x open from the cutoff. We're on the button. We're going to go ahead and 3-bet that pretty aggressively. Our pocket queens will certainly be one of the hands that we 3-bet. We'll probably 3-bet about a 13% range. You know, pocket 7s are better, suited broadways, suited 9x, the suited wheel aces, offsuit versions of ace-jack plus king-queen. Should get us to about 13%. Upper left-hand table against the imposition 3-bet, we're just going to go ahead and fold with the ace-5 suited. Games are pretty lousy right now. I've really only found one recreational player thus far. Queen 6 a little weak to raise blind on blind in the upper right-hand table. If you think the big blind is going to be a poor player that makes lots of mistakes, or if he's particularly nitty and he doesn't 3-bet or he folds too much, and you want to go ahead and rob him with that, I understand. I wouldn't do it as a standard, but if you have those kind of reads as a justification for a deviation, it makes perfect sense to me. This table looks like it may have a couple of guys that were playing shorter, so we'll keep an eye on that. It's some promise in an otherwise bleak landscape at the moment. Although then again, maybe not. Lower right-hand table, blind on blind, we can raise Queen 6. Upper left-hand table, this guy's been aggressive. I don't know if he's been so aggressive I can justify adding as many hands as King 9 suited into a 3-bet range against him. Definitely considering playing more hands than I would as a standard in that spot because he's been a weak aggressive player. That said, I don't want to go too over the top with it and start, doubling up my 3-bet range or something like that. Upper left-hand table will raise the King-Queen suited under the gun. Have about an 18-ish% raise first in range here. King-Queen suited very clearly strong enough to be a part of that. Called by an in-position player. He seems reasonably reggy, but he's calling from the cutoff, so he may be a weaker reg. Upper right-hand table, middle position raises 3x. We're on the big blind with pocket kings after there's a button cold call. I'm going to go ahead and pop this up. Probably have about a 6.5% range here in this squeeze spot. Stacking off with queens and ace, queens plus ace king if I get jammed back on. 3-betting most of my suited broadways, pocket tens plus ace queen offsuit. Against this big blind squeeze, he really forces my hand here. I can't do very much. I really can't call very many combos for this size with a couple players left to act that could either, back jam over the top or at least call, especially in position, and steal more of my equity. I'm going to be extremely tight in this spot because of the other players out there. Just go ahead and fold my king queen. I think I'd be jamming over the top with my ace king, queens plus, maybe jacks. I just don't expect him to be squeezing all that loosely in this tight formation where I raise first from under the gun. Upper right-hand table, get a under the gun 2.5x. We're going to go ahead and 3-bet from the button with our ace-king suited. Probably about an 8.5% range, 8 to 9%, something like that. Nines plus, most suited broadways, offsuit, ace-queen, ace-king, king-queen, a few wheel aces, something like that. Get us in that 8 to 9% range. He legitimately had ace-king, so his squeeze is not light by any sense of the imagination. Pocket nines came along and called twice. He's a little bit questionable play there to be calling in position like that, then calling the big 3-bet. I guess it makes some sense with pocket nines, but okay, this loose recreational type player goes and puts a 5x raise in from the button. I'm going to be playing back at this guy. I'm going to be stacking off pretty light here. Because of his larger size, I really can't get a 3-bet, 4-bet, 5-bet dynamic going, so my 3-bet is going to put him into a spot where he has to either jam or fold or call. He can't really raise back small. I'm going to pop him up to 22. I'm going to be stacking off with pocket tens or better if he jams over the top, as well as my ace-king in this particular spot. Mix in a few bluffs like some suited broadways, ace-queen, maybe pocket nines. We'll call off with the ace-king. Right into jacks. We're racing. We were ahead. Now we're behind. He wins the flip, but that's okay. That's what happens with flips half the time. I also don't mind when the fish wins a big pot there because he's got some more money to splash around the table. That might also tell us that his size-ups do signify some strength as he went 5x with pocket jacks on the button, whereas I don't think I've noticed him using a large sizing like that otherwise. May give us some information on how he's playing. Lower right-hand table, we raise first in blind on blind, then check ranged on the king, king, 6, two-tone flop. He bet small, so we went ahead and called that bet, and we checked again. We peeled the ace of clubs. We have the 9 kicker to go with our pair of aces, and we also have that club draw with it. So we have it's a pretty good card for us, all things considered. He checks back, and now the river puts a 4 flush out there. I think there's going to be more value in giving this guy a chance to go ahead and stab at the 4 flush with something that's got no showdown value. He could very much have stabbed all kinds of cards on the flop that just don't do any good, didn't have anything going for it. I think it's going to be better off than trying to get called by a lower club in this spot. Pocket 8's just outside my range for 3-betting. He goes and overbets, however. He bets essentially 2x the pot. That may change my plan here slightly. Although the overbets are not necessarily value heavy in these blind on blind formations. The bet check bet line tends to be over bluff. The four flush river is pretty neutral. Given that I think he can actually be over bluffing here quite a bit, I'm going to go ahead and hero call this. It's kind of weak, but I think it's worth doing. Yeah, and he ends up with 6 deuce. So he actually had a bit of equity on the flop that he was, betting for protection or equity denial. And then when the four flush runout comes, there's no reason to check down his low pair with no club, but there is reason to turn it into a bluff. But we reasoned our way through it, saw through it, and made a hero call for a big overbet with a relatively marginal bluff catcher. Upper right-hand table, button raises 2.5x. He's been very reserved so far. It's only the second time he's raised in almost 20 chances. I'm going to deviate and treat this like he's a bit tighter than a standard button would be. Normally would 3-bet about 14%. I'll probably kick that down to about 10%. Doesn't change the calculus any with my particular holding. I'm still going to be 3-betting the king-queen suited. I just think that this guy might be a little bit too passive to be 3-betting him like a standard player in that spot, so I should probably defend him a bit more tightly. Upper left-hand table, get that sort of potentially weakish type reg. 3x opens the cutoff. The button calls. I'm in the big blind with ace-10. I think I'm going to want to go ahead and pop this up. Probably re-steal about 7-8% here. Suited broadways 9+, ace-queen plus, something like that I think is a reasonable range to 3-bet in this spot. And if I get jammed back over the top by this guy, I can call off with queens plus ace-king and probably my pocket jacks as well. Fold out the initial raiser. The button cold caller's thinking about it. It's a pretty hefty size raise for him to be calling too much with, especially with the range that should be somewhat capped because of the initial call as opposed to 3-betting against the first pre-flop raise. But you never know. Sometimes guys flat hands to be tricky. Sometimes guys back jam hands because they think that I'm weak. We'll squeeze too much, or that I was squeezing too much, and they can play back. Upper right-hand table, we're going to raise first in from middle position with, a low 20% range, about 21%, including 10-9 suited. Player 6 is playing short. That's a good sign. We'll go ahead and tag him. Lower right-hand table doesn't have any obvious benefits going for it. Same with the upper right-hand table for that fact. The recreational player uses a size up again, 5x under the gun. I'm not going to three bet and under the gun raise first in from the cutoff with Jack 8 suited anyway, no matter what. But I'm curious if that size up does signify strength, like I was speculating earlier when he showed down the jacks. The one seat is limp, so they got some promise at this table here with the short stack and a guy that's been limping. Upper left-hand table will raise, it's effectively middle position, we'll raise first in with Jack 9 suited. That new table in the lower left, we do have a 30 blind short stack to our immediate right, so some semblance of promise for games improving here by seeing a short stack player in there with us. 30 blind stack at the upper left-hand table now as well. That's some slightly better tables than when we started. Still not amazing, but at least good enough. Our left-hand table will raise first in from middle position. Get called by a short stack in the big blind. We flop top 2 on the Queen Jack 4 two-tone board. We'll go ahead and range bet small. Turn is a 10, not the best card as it makes some straights possible. We've got just over a pot left. We're just going to go ahead and put him all in for about a little over, or over bet about 150% a pot, a little less than 150%. He ends up with Queen 9, top pair on the open ender. He hits the 9, but the 9 is no good as we already have a better 2 pair. We end up taking up a small pot off that guy for whatever chips he had left. Upper right-hand table, cutoff raises first in with the 3x open. Small blind, we're going to go ahead and 3-bet him, probably about a 10% range, including ace-king. Probably use 8s or better, suited broadways, ace-queen plus, king-queen, a couple of suited wheel aces, a couple of suited 9s. Pop them up about 10% here. And get called. King 4 deuce, two-tone flop. We'll go ahead and range bet small. We get called. Turn is the offsuit 8. We definitely want to keep barreling here. If you want to have some traps with some strong hands, kings would be a good one, obviously. I would say ace-king is a better trap than aces because aces doesn't necessarily block call-down range. I'd rather trap ace-king with the club than without also. Lower left-hand table, blind down blind, get a 3x open. We'll go ahead and re-raise with our pocket kings. We'll raise very aggressively in the spot, 17, 18%. It won't be an entirely linear 3-bet range like we usually have in most spots here. We'll have some weak offsuit cards that aren't good enough to call, a handful of a smattering of suited cards that we don't put in the call range as well as some big pairs, suited broadways. He calls. We get a lousy flop for our particular hand, ace-9, 9 two-tone. We are going to go ahead and put in our small range bet, though, as well. It's bad for our particular hand. It's not too bad for our range. We've got a few suited 9x type combos, maybe even a couple offsuit 9x combos mixed in there. I've got aces full. I've got quads 9s. I've got all the good aces like ace-king, ace-queen, suited versions of ace-jack, ace-10. Upper left-hand table, we'll go ahead and we'll call the 2.5x middle position open from our big blind with king-queen. We'll check range to the raiser. Lower left-hand table in that blind battle, we got check raise. I'm just going to go ahead and give up my pocket king as I continue with my 9x, most of my ace-x. Pretty much all my ace-x and my flush draws. I can fold the pocket pairs, though. Upper left-hand table, king 7-3, rainbow flop, pretty disconnected. He puts in a small bet. I would just check call against a more appropriately larger size bet. Against this small bet, I'm going to put in a small check raise with my top pair. Expect a decent number of folds after that small check raise, but I also want to get some value if he was going to want to float me. I'm going to go ahead and put this into a more defensive check and call down type line now after he calls the check raise once. I want to keep blasting with my strong hands, like two pairs and sets. I can have sevens or threes there for sure. I could have some king seven, probably some king nine would even be in the check raise range on the flop. Now he goes and he bets. I'm going to go ahead and check call that with my top pair and check to him again. He checks back. Let's see, what did he have? He had king jacks. He played it pretty reasonably, but our check raise let us get some value a little bit on the thin side there. This guy's playing short, but not playing particularly fishy. I'm going to go ahead and take the fish tag off him. This guy playing 19-4 with 27% limps, however. I think he deserves his fish tag. This guy's playing short with limps. I've seen enough to tag him. I think we'll try to replace the lower left table, as it didn't end up being as promising as it initially had looked. This guy's been extremely tight. It's only the second time he's raised 31 chances. You can just go ahead and easily fold against that 3x open. Lower right-hand table, a player with reg-type stats opens the button 2.5x. We're on the small blind. We can 3-bet very aggressively here, about 15%, including some offsuit Broadway combos like ace-jack plus king-queen. Against the 4-bet, though, we can just quickly fold. It's one of the weakest hands for continuing against 4-bets in our 3-bet range. Upper right-hand table, we get a 3x open from the cutoff. We're on the button. We're going to go ahead and 3-bet that pretty aggressively, about 12% of hands, including pocket queens. So probably pocket 7s are better, suited broadways, ace-jack plus king-queen, suited wheel aces, maybe a few more suited connector, suited ace combos to mix in from there. The out-of-position player calls us. We get a king 7-6 two-tone flop. We'll go ahead and put in our small range bet after he checks to us. He calls. Now, I don't want to keep barreling the queens here. Hearts aren't great, even though I do block them to some extent with one in my hand. And the ace obviously is a bad overcard, but beyond that, there's not too much I'm worried about. I can induce bluffs from missed draws. The king is a great card for the river, as now it's harder for him to have that king. I can under-rep my hand, so a hand like pocket tens just thinks that it's good and has to calm me down. I definitely want to go ahead and get value here in this line, especially on that great river there. That's really the best river other than the queen for us. It also can induce bluffs, like I said, if he has a hand like a straight draw or flush draw that misses and he has no choice but to bluff because he has 10 high or something like that. Cutoff will raise first in with pocket tens. Upper left-hand table, blind down blind. King 5 a little too loose to defend. I probably would take hands like King 6 or King 7 as being just outside my calling range, but good enough to put it in there into the smattering of offsuit hands that re-raise as a pre-flop bluff. King 5, I'll just go ahead and fold. Lower right-hand table, we'll raise under the gun, first in with ace 3 suited. Get 3-bet by a player who's been on the more tight and passive side. This is the guy that was doing things like calling with mid-pairs in position and not playing a linear 3-bet strategy. I'm willing to think this guy's 3-bet range is probably even stronger than the other players would be in this spot. So it's just a very easy fold. Even if I thought he was playing optimally, I think I would still go ahead and fold that without thinking twice. Given that I think he's passive, it just becomes an automatic slam dunk fold. And these offsuit, gapped cards are a bit too weak to defend. Maybe against a min raise you could consider it, but not against that sizing. A short recreational player limps under the gun. I was going to isolate him if I had the chance. However, the middle position player beats us to it. In that setup, we'll just go ahead and fold our queen 10. I would have completed my small blind there with that recreational player limper against a small isolation raise. I'm going to go into a 3-bet or fold mode instead, and I'm not going to be 3-betting a hand as weak as Jack 8 suited. Upper left-hand table, get a 2.5x open for middle position. We're sitting there in the cutoff. Ace-Jack is a pretty standard hand to 3-bet in this spot against that size. And this guy's been a little passive, but I don't think it's been enough that I can go ahead and start really reading too much into it over a small sample. It's pretty close. I'm just going to go ahead and make a standard 3-bet. 3-bet about 10% of my range, including Ace-Jack offsuit. We get 4-bet. That's a shame. Nothing to do but just go ahead and fold the Ace-Jack. Upper or lower right-hand table, that recreational player min raises. We're going to 3-bet that pretty aggressively, 10-11%, including all of our suited broadways like Ace-10 suited. I'm having a hard time getting another 4th table up here right now. These guys are playing heads up. I'll jump in and join their game, and hopefully the rest of the table fills out with a few more players, ideally some weak ones. Lower right-hand table, we raised middle position first in with Ace-King. Upper left-hand table, aggressive regular type. He raises 2.5x from middle position. I'm going to go ahead and 3-bet him with a 7 or 8% range, including my suited broadways, Ace-King, pocket 9s or better. Maybe a few suited connectors or wheel aces to give me a few more bluffy type combos in there. But Ace-Jack suited, clearly the type of hand I want to be 3-betting here against this guy. Sure taking his time thinking about this one. Wonder if he disconnected. I think that's what happened. I think he disconnected. Lower right-hand table, button races first in. No need to defend the small blind with ace-9 offsuit. Upper left-hand table, that short stack recreational player limps middle position. He's only got about 12 blinds. We're going to go ahead and pop it up with ace-king. Look to isolate him or maybe get him to raise back in over the top of his preflop. We get popped up to 20 blinds. That's a pretty large re-raise. It's almost a 4x re-raise in position. Said ace-king suited really is too strong to think about doing anything but just going ahead and getting that money in, especially we're not even 100 blinds deep. He's only about 92 deep. Not going to outthink this at all. I guess with a hand like jacks, it gets a bit more interesting. But ace-king suited is just too good to consider doing anything but shipping into the middle. He's got pocket kings, but we spiked on him, so. Against that large 3-bet size in that we face, we should have very few, if any, calls. You know, we benefit more from jamming all in because we pick up more when he folds than we would against a more appropriately sized 3-bet. But the larger size does, at least in theory, should signify more strength. We need to be folding a large percentage of our range there against that size. Not ace-king suited, of course. He's just going to have to show us a better hand. But we can definitely adjust or adapt some based on that kind of wonky preflop sizing that he used. Upper right-hand table, we'll raise first in the button with ace-9. Get called by both blinds, both of whom seem to be on the weaker side. This guy playing short and this guy with a wide V-pip preflop raise gap, as well as lots of limps. On king 8-5 two-tone, we'll just go ahead and check back our ace-9. Do have a few backdoor draws there with that 9 coordinate with the 8 and the 5, and also having the ace of clubs, but we don't need to start betting that particular hand there multi-way. Upper left-hand table, cutoff raises first in, and we'll pop it up on the button with ace-5 suited. We'll have about a 12-13% 3-bet range here, including all the wheel aces. Suited broadways, 9x suited. Pocket 7s are better, and maybe then offsuit versions of ace-jack plus king-queen. Lower right-hand table, the recreational player calls the small blind, leads into a small on queen 10-8 two-tone. We've got king-jack for the open-ended straight draw. We're going to go ahead and call that. Lower left-hand table, we're going to go ahead and raise the cutoff first in with ace-9. The rec checks the turn now. It's a 6 that completes the flush. With the open-ender, even though I don't have a diamond, I am going to keep betting. I wouldn't really be betting the gut shots without a diamond, but the open-ended straight draw to the nuts with the diamond, I'll go ahead and put another bet in. Upper left-hand table, the rec player cold called the 3-bet, and then the raiser called as well. The raiser leads into us very small, about 30% of pot on 7-6-5 two-tone. We've got third pair and the nut flush draw. We're going to go ahead and call that off. The rec calls behind. So now we have a situation where the main pot will be shown down and there's a small side pot, not completely dry, but pretty small. No real sense in bluffing here, as I just don't benefit that much, as the picking up the small side pot's not all that valuable. I want to go ahead and just check back and look to try to make my flush. Doesn't happen, but we got to realize our equity pretty cheaply here in a spot where there's no reason to go ahead and turn the hand into a bluff. And against that bet, I see no reason to hero call with a weak pair. And he's got fives full, so he actually had a super strong hand. Hitting the club would have been disaster for me. Upper left-hand table will raise first in with ace-king in the cutoff. Lower left-hand table will defend the big blind against the button 2.5x open with our queen-jack offsuit. Button checks back. Turn is a jack, giving us second pair. We're going to start jabbing at that pot small out of position. He calls. River is the queen, putting 4 to the straight out there. I think I'm probably better off just trying to show this down than to try to get some thin value. It's not even really all that strong a 2-pair at this point. Any queen or any 9 is going to beat us. A lot of the better 2 pairs that will still hero call also do as well. He could have a lot of ace-x in his button raising range as well. He bets half pot. And the half pot bet from Regs is pretty overbluffed. Let's see here. That check call bet line, however, is not particularly overbluffed. The 4 straight river is pretty neutral. This is pretty close. Since it's close, I'm going to call. The price is so good. I think I'm going to be showing an ace an awful lot here, though. Got a button to raise first in for 3x. We're in the big blind with ace-jack. We can go ahead and 3-bet this guy. 3-bet him about 15%. Lower left-hand table, we'll raise pocket 7s first in on the button. Big blind calls, checks to us on ace, king, jack, two-ton. We'll go ahead and range bet small. He calls us. Turn is the 8. Not much reason to keep bluffing, as this hand just has very little in the way of outs to better hands. I'd much rather be bluffing 9-10, any 10x, any queen x, club draws. Check back the pocket 7s. Could bluff the river in a lot of cases. We don't need to 3-bet all the wheel aces in this lower right-hand table against the under-the-gun player, so we'll go ahead and fold ace-3. I'd probably 3-bet ace-5, ace-4, and we'll fold ace-3, ace-deuce. I am going to turn the 7s into a bluff. I'm mostly trying to fold out Jack-X. I don't know that overbets are going to fold out even Ace-X, certainly not King-X, so I'm not going to overbet. I'm just going to use a standard size in here. I guess I could have some King-X that might want to overbet, but for the most part, my strong hands were also barreling the turn. So I don't know that an overbet is terribly credible here. Yeah, I'm not going to get him to fold Ace-X all that often there. I think it's still worth a shot, especially because we can get him to fold Jack-X pretty reasonably. We get 3-bet in position here. We've got ace-king under the gun. We get squeezed up. I'll try and decide if I just want to jam all in or 4-bet small and call off. I think I can 4-bet small and call off here still for that size. It's pretty close, but I'm gonna be going with my queens plus and my ace-king here in this spot. I could have ace-queen offsuit in there as a bluff because I don't mind getting ace-queen in for 31 blinds against the short stack. 3-better jams all in over the top. We're going to have to go with our ace-king. We run into ace-king and pocket nines. King on the river without making the ace-king suited flush. We end up splitting the pocket nines money. Upper right-hand table will raise first in from the cutoff with ace-3 suited, part of a 27 to 28% raise first in range. You get called in position and by the small blind. Small blind known to be weak, and the button also perhaps weak as well. With a player in position to us, we're not going to c-bet. We'll be checking our entire range. On that king-4 deuce two-tone flop, it checks through. On the 10, we get check to again. I'm going to start bluffing now with my gut shot and my overcard. I'm going to use the small bet because we're multi-way. Button comes along, as does the small blind. And when we get led into, I think we can just go ahead and fold. I think I was going to follow through on the river and put in a small bet, trying to pick up that pot cheaply against all kinds of busted draws. But when we get led into by the rec, I think we can just go ahead and fold that, especially with the player behind us. Upper right-hand table will raise first in with ace-jack suited from middle position. Lower right-hand table, same formation. This time we had ace-6 suited, but also part of the raise first in range, 20-21%, something like that. Upper right-hand table get called by a rec in position and by the big blind. We get an ace-7-7 rainbow flop. If it checks to me, I'll be checking to the in-position player as well, checking my entire range. It checks through. Turn is a 9 of clubs, putting a backdoor flush draw out there. It checks to me again. I'm going to go ahead and start putting in small bets now. The in-position player quickly folds out. Lower right-hand table, the recreational player calls from the big blind and leads into me on a 10, Ace-10-7 two-tone flop. We've got Ace-6 with the backdoor flush draw. We're going to go ahead and flat that. Rec checks to us on the lower right-hand table. It's a 6 of diamonds, giving us 2 pair and also completing a flush or a possible straight. I'm going to go ahead and keep betting my 2 pair, but use a smaller size because of the flush closing board. Upper right-hand table, I'm going to try to get some more value from my Ace-X. Bet that Ace-Jack. Try to get heroed by a worse ace. He quickly folds. Lower left-hand table, cutoff raises first in 2.5x. We can go ahead and 3-bet with a hand like King-Queen offsuit, part of a 10 to 11% 3-bet range. Lower right-hand table, get a 2.5x open from under the gun. We'll go ahead and defend our big blind with the suited connectors like Ace-7 suited. Lower left-hand table, we'll raise first in with King-8 from the cutoff, King-8 suited. Lower right-hand table against that small bet on the King-Jack. I'll defend that pretty widely and check raise pretty aggressively, but 8-7 just has no way to really make a good hand in this particular pot. I've got no backdoor straight draws, no backdoor flush draws. I'll just go ahead and fold my 8 high, no backdoors. Say those middle and low connected cards in the hearts, or in hearts specifically, are the worst possible cards to have on that board, as they don't have anything going for them, nor can they on essentially any run out. Lower right-hand table, 4-3 suited. Probably just outside the range of hands I usually open. It's pretty close. These guys have been passive. This guy's been on the weak side. I think I can go ahead and raise it. It's pretty close, but I'm going to bring it in. Upper right-hand table, get a 3x open from the cutoff. We'll go ahead and re-raise from the button with pocket 7s. That's probably right around the cusp of the worst pair. I'll 3-bet in that spot against that size. I think it's okay to do. Pretty close, but reasonable. We get called. We get an Ace-9 deuce two-tone flop. He checks to us. We go ahead and put in a small range bet. And he folds out. I'd keep barreling on the 7s, obviously. I think I keep barreling clubs as well, as that's going to be more or less my lowest single club hand I could have. So I want to turn those on a 3-club, on a flush closing turn, a 3-club turn. I want to turn those low, straight single clubs into bluffs that can check back with some showdown value on the 4th club. Or possibly continue bluffing as I do block some potential flushes. Not a too many because it's a low club in my hand, but some removal properties there. Lower left-hand table, we'll raise first in from middle position with King Queen. Get 3-bet from the small blind. Healthy size 2, about 4.5x. I'm going to defend reasonably tight against that. Suited broadways, pocket pairs, queens through 7s, ace-king offsuit, and 4-bet kings, aces, ace-king suited to get it in, and ace-queen offsuit is my bluff. Upper left-hand table, again, a middle position, 3x open. We're in the cutoff with ace-jack. We'll go ahead and raise that up. This guy is probably on the weak side, playing a bit short as well. Kind of on the cusp, but pretty reasonable. 3-bet about 9% there, including ace-jack off, or better, king-queen off. Upper right-hand table, we raised ace-queen suited under the gun. A weak player calls us in the cutoff. We check range to him on 3-deuce-deuce, 2-tone. We do have the nut flush draw. He stabs half pot. We'll go ahead and check call this. I don't really think I need to check raise a hand this strong. I'm way ahead of everything except his pairs. You know, and I'm way ahead of everything except for his pocket pairs. I'm not folding out his pocket pairs with a check raise all that often. I want to leave his weaker flush draws in there. You know, I can call and get to showdown and showdown ace high unimproved some of the time. He goes ahead and stabs a second time, about a third of pot on the 4 turn. We also have the gut shot to that low end of the straight. We'll go ahead and continue check calling. River offsuit 7. None of our ships came in. We'll keep checking. He bets 5 into 20. Interesting. I may have to just make a pot odds-oriented call. I mean, if he's got any kind of pair, he's just value timing me, but he's could have all kinds of stupid high card hands, which I beat. Let me think about this. That small bet is pretty overbluffed. The low run out staying low is pretty overbluffed. Triple barrel isn't necessarily underbluffed by fish, but the sizing and the runouts are heavily overbluffed. I'm going to go ahead and make a pot odds call. If I'm good here 1 time out of 6, it's break even. And we're against Queen Jack. Our ace is good. He was dominated the entire time. And we pick up a decent little pot that he shouldn't have been shoveling money into in the way that he was. Lower right-hand table, small blind. We're facing a 2.5x button up, and we're going to go ahead and 3-bet pretty aggressively from our small blind, about 15%, including all of our suited aces. Probably got pocket 5s or better, ace-jack plus, king-queen, any suited ace, any suited Broadway, any suited 9, 9-8 suited. Get me to about 15%. Our left-hand table will raise the button first in with Jack-8 suited. We're going to shift that table back out in favor of trying to find another one, as that table is just not shown us to have any real obvious fish or rec-type players added over the last couple of orbits. Upper left-hand table, the recreational player limps the middle position, 15 blinds deep. The small blind completes. We're going to go ahead and isolate that up. With, you know, 8s or better, suited Broadway, suited 9s, ace-10 plus, king-jack plus. Ace is, of course, the tippy top of that range, so we'll go ahead and pop that up as well. The limper limp calls for about a third of his stack. Small blind gets out of the way. We get a Jack-6-6 two-tone flop. Given that we have less than pot left, I don't want to use the small range bet. I want to just go all in, or in this case, I'm actually going to go ahead and get kind of cute and trap, as this hand is not that vulnerable. Jack on the turn. Now it's really not all that worth value shoving here, because everything on that board actually beats us, the Jack or the 6. I'm going to give him another chance to either hit something marginal or put money in with something he shouldn't. He checks again. Just going to go ahead and try to get hero called, not give him another chance to stab when he's been checking. See if I can get called by ace high or random pair. He quickly calls, and it goes straight in the muck. Let's see what he had. He had king nine, so he snap called us with king high, which is not the worst called on there on a double paired board, but probably not going to be good all that often against me at the same time in that line. Lower right-hand table, we raised ace-king first in from middle position. The big blind calls. We get an ace-king-7 two-tone flop. We flop top two. He checks to us, and we go ahead and range bet small. The big blind calls our small bet. We get an offsuit 3. If he checks, he'll be going ahead and overbetting at this point. He does check. I'll go ahead and put in my overbet with the ace-king, 150%. And that folds him out. Upper right-hand table, we'll raise first in from middle position with 9-8 suited. Lower right-hand table, we're in the small blind, facing the middle position, 2.5x open. We can go ahead and 3-bet him, probably with about an 8 to 9% range. However, this guy's been awfully passive. He's only raising about 13%. I'm going to go a bit tighter and actually not 3-bet with the ace-4 in this spot. It's a deviation from what would be standard just because this guy's been so tight and nitty. I think that's going to be okay. Upper right-hand table, we get a 3x open from a weak player in middle position. We'll go ahead and defend our big blind with king-queen. Check range to him on the jack-10-6 board. And with the two overcards, open in a straight draw, we can go ahead and check call that. I think I would check raise with the club in my hand. I'll just check call without. I think this actually can be a fold. It's a bit on the tight side. I think I'm going to go ahead and fold it. It's pretty close. I believe a solver would continue. I'm just not sure what I want to do on a lot of different cards that improve me. The board's paired, so any Jack X is going to beat any of my overcards. My straights will sometimes run into flushes or full houses. I'm going to go ahead and let that one go just because I don't like the turn card. A blank or turn card, I'm of course going to continue, especially against that small size. Couple of shorter stack players at this new table. That's promising. Hopefully they turn out to be weak. Upper right-hand table, we'll raise first in from middle position. I'm sorry, from the cutoff with ace-8 suited, part of a 28-ish% raise first in range. We get min raised from the small blind by a loose passive recreational player. The min raise doesn't inherently signify strength, although the fact that he's been so passive, only a second 3-bet and 40-some opportunities thus far. That said, for the price, we're not going anywhere with the suited ace, of course. We're going to call and evaluate, but we're going to be pretty cautious on the one-pair type hands. He checks to us. I'll go ahead and check back. Turn is a flush closing 5 of clubs, three clubs out there. We do have a gut shot. I am going to go ahead and start betting. I'm going to follow through and bluff the river against this guy as well, thinking I can fold him off all kinds of ace-x with the club type hands that beat me. When he leads into me, however, 3, 4, 5. Just going to go ahead and fold. I'm kind of suspicious of that. I don't really know how he has a 6 there. The check call bet line is such a rare line. I just don't know what to make of it. But 4 straight rivers tend to be underbluffed by fish, as do flush closing boards in general. And the larger size ups also signify strength more so than weakness. I'm not going to talk myself into any kind of wacky suicidal bluff raise here, even though I'm very skeptical as to what that line means. Lower left-hand table, raise middle position with the pocket nines. A fishy type player goes ahead and 3-bets me. We can go ahead and defend with the 3x with the pocket nines against this guy. Just evaluate based on the board textures we get, especially with the other fishy type player overcalling. We're going to go ahead and check to this razor on the ace-king-7. We're not getting involved in this pot unless we somehow get a free turn and peel a 9. Yeah, against the bet, we'll just fold. Upper left-hand table, we'll raise the limper from the blind-on-blind spot out of our big blind with Jack-9 suited. The 3-better showed down pocket queens in that hand. Upper left-hand table, he calls the raise, and he checks to us on Queen 8-7 two-tone. We'll put in a small range bet. We do have the gut shot and the flush draw here with our Jack-9. Turn is the jack, gives us second pair. We do have a lot of equity with this hand. However, I think this is the exact kind of both 9x and club draw hand that should be checked back. I'd be overbetting my value hands. I'm still betting here. Straights and sets, good 2 pairs. Probably even some good 1 pairs. I think I would overbet for value as weak as... I'm not sure about the 1 pair hands, but I am pretty sure I want to check this one back. River, Queen of clubs, that's a good card for us. It's going to be hard for him to get away from a queen. And we've also made our flush at the same time. He goes and bets into me about 2/3. I'm going to go ahead and put in a raise with this hand, looking to get paid. Use a smaller size here to make it very easy for his queen to call. Lower right-hand table, blind down blind, get a 3x open. We're going to defend with our queen deuce suited. He checks to us on the Jack-7 deuce rainbow. We'll go ahead and stab with our overcards and some backdoor draws. We get a 4x open over a poster here with from a weaker player. We're going to go ahead and 3-bet this up. Plan to stack off if he jams over the top with jacks or better in ace-king. Lower right-hand table, I've got a very weak queen now. I'm going to go ahead and check that back and look to either induce a bluff or put an under-rep value bet in on the river. We get jammed over the top with king-jack. We can go ahead and fold that one. He checks again, so we'll go ahead and put out another value bet. Lower left-hand table will raise pocket threes from the cutoff. Get let into for pot. We have an underpair. It's going to be a pretty trivial fold to make. Lower right-hand table will raise first in from the button with king 9. Get 3-bet small. We will continue a lot more against the small 3-bet, but not with these offsuit dominated type cards like king 9. That's going to be a pretty trivial fold in my opinion. Lower right-hand table will raise first in with jack 10. Got called by an in-position player. We'll check to him on the king 6-5. He instantly leaves, surrendering the pot to us. We'll take it. No need to start figuring out how I bluff on later streets. He just folds and hands me the pot and leaves the table. No need to defend 6-7 offsuit against a 3x open, even from the button. Upper right-hand table will raise king-queen from middle position. Lower right-hand table, we're heads up for the moment, we'll raise queen 10 suited. Upper right-hand table will check range to the in-position caller on ace-6 deuce rainbow. And we get 3-bet with the by the big blind, this heads-up pot. We're going to go ahead and defend that with queen 10 suited. Upper right-hand table, it checks back. We're going to start jabbing at that pot small. He quickly calls. River is the jack. I'm going to follow through on my bluffs, try to fold him off some kind of marginal pair. Not going to show down king high. And it works. We get continuation, but over here in this heads-up pot in the lower right-hand table, 7-4-3 two-tone. We've got 2 overcards, backdoor flush draw. I just don't know that this guy is sufficiently aggressive, even though we're heads up. This is probably supposed to be a float, but I think he's been a bit passive. I don't know that he starts 3-betting heads up the first hand necessarily all that aggressively. And he's not using the smaller size. If he bet the standard reg 1/3 range bet size, I would have float these 2 overcards from the backdoor flush draw. Given that he's sized up and I'm not real convinced that this player is sufficiently aggressive, I'm just going to go ahead and be a bit of a nit myself and not float him there. Lower right-hand table, button raises 2.5x. We're in the small blind, going to 3-bet him pretty aggressively, about 15%, including our ace-jack offsuit. There's a new 30-bomb player in the big blind. He goes and cold calls the 3-bet, which is an interesting play to say the least. Initial preflop raiser folds out. We have less than a pot size bet left. We have ace-jack high with the backdoor flush draw on 6-3-2. I'm just going to pot it, put him in, try to fold him out, or try to outrun if he calls me down with some kind of pair. He has 5-6. His play is atrocious pre-flop, but on the flop he has no choice but to call. We can be pretty sure he's a bad player by the fact that he's putting in that much money cold calling a 3-bet with 5-6 suited with nothing but his big blind invested. Lower left-hand table, we raise the cutoff with Queen 8, and we check range to the in-position caller on the Ace Queen 6 two-tone flop. He's a fishy but aggressive player. He goes ahead and bets 5 into 6. I'm going to call this at least once. The size up has me feeling a bit skeptical. The fact I don't really have any kind of other backdoors out of this hand is not great. He could definitely call with some ace-x, but he's been awfully aggressive with his tendencies so far, and he's also pretty loose pre-flop. Now he's betting small, so I think I have to go ahead and continue calling that with second pair. River is the queen. We got there with trips. I'll check to him one more time, give him another chance to keep betting if he was bluffing. Upper left-hand table, recreational player on 30 blinds, limps the cutoff. Small blind completes, will isolate out of the blinds with ace-queen. And that player showed ace-5, so we did outdraw him there with that river card. Upper right-hand table will raise middle position. First in with about a 21% range, including ace-king offsuit. Big blind calls. Get a jack 9-3 rainbow flop. He checks to us. We'll go ahead and put in our small range bet. He calls. 8 of diamonds. I could continue blasting with various 10x or queen x type combos here. Ace-king I don't think I want to be blasting with, though. Be using overbets or checks on his particular board so far. I'll check back the ace-king. I will, however, turn an ace-king into a bluff on that particular run-out. The four straight rivers are a little underbluffed, actually, so I'm not going to go ahead and turn this into a bluff raise. I was thinking about, though, especially with the removal to king-queen and ace-queen. For right-hand table, raise first in from under the gun with about a 17% range, including ace-jack. Upper left-hand table, raise first in from the cutoff with about a 28% range, including 5-4. Lower right-hand table, raise the button first in with a mid-40% raise first in range, including queen 5 suited. Upper right-hand table, we face that min re-raise from that weird spazzy rec player, and then we get overcalled by the button. We've gotten such great odds, I'm going to come along with this. I'm just going to be very, very cautious post-flop with one pair marginal hands. I'm looking to hit 2 pairs or straights for that price that I was given. Upper left-hand table, we'll check range to the in-position player. I'm going to start shutting our tables down here at the next big blind and wrap this session up. Upper right-hand table, we checked in the big blind after the recreational player limps under the gun. We check our range on ace-6 deuce two-tone. He checks back. We start stabbing the turn with our bottom pair and our nut flush draw, and he quickly folds out. And that's about it. Thank you for joining me. Until next time, this is Charlie Murphy signing off.